Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing some Blue Painter thanks to a donor who wanted to see this list on the channel. About a year or so ago, Blue Painter had like a big flash in the pan and was probably the best painter deck for a very, very short window of time. Then it kind of fizzled out a bit. But now it's back again. Of the 5 painter decks that have top-8 online challenges, 2 of them have been Blue Painter. So clearly there is something here. I think part of that is down to Stock Up being a new tool that this can leverage. So what is the painter deck? Well, we put a painter into play, we name a colour, most likely blue so that we have more things to pitch to our forces, but sometimes it will be black so that we don't get snuffed out. And then we put a Grindstone into play, quite often off of an Urza's Saga, and the Grindstone will mill our opponent for 2 cards, but if those cards are the same colour, we do it again. And painter means that all the cards are the same colour, so this will mill out our opponent, and that is our primary win condition, but we can just beat down with our Urza's Saga constructs because we've got a lot of artifacts. We've got artifact lands, we've got artifact mana, we've got artifact baubles. We've got some utility artifacts as well, like Lavaspur Boots to make our constructs bigger, a little bit of Graveyard Hate, and an Aether Spellbomb to take something out of play. Then we got a lot of counter magic here, so we've got forces, we've got Metallic Rebuke, obviously pretty good with all of our artifacts because we can make this a lot cheaper. We have a Force of Negation. There is some fast mana to power stuff out, like Ancient Tombs and City of Traitors. We have a one-of Otawara again. We need some ways of bouncing stuff out of play that gets there that we can't counter, so that's what the Otawara and the 2 Synod Stupors are doing for us. And then we have this big pile of 15 cards here, so like a quarter of the deck. And what is this card selection? This is our card advantage. And we have a lot of it here. So we have Emry, which can effectively be a Howling Mine, getting back a Bauble every turn, or it can get back some useful things. If we don't have exile removal, then we can just keep getting back the painter until we're ready to go and win. We have Stock Up, which digs deep and finds what we need when we're an A+B combo deck. That makes a lot of sense. Thoughtcast, just a little bit of a draw to action for 1 mana most of the time. And Tamiyo, where if we're drawing extra cards from our Thoughtcasts and our Baubles, we can flip this, or we can just have the clues to leverage like our soul lands to get the mana out and crack them and turn it into Planeswalker, which can obviously threaten to ultimate and pretty much win the game, or it can buy us back key counter magic or keep our opponent's aggro at bay. It does quite a lot. And that is pretty much the main deck for this. In the sideboard, we've got some extra tools here. So we've got some various counter magic in the form of Blue Blasts, Signs, Force of Negation. Another Urza Saga target and Pithing Needle for when we need to stop something like a sneak attack or whatever. We've got a little bit of Graveyard Hate in the Faerie Macabre to go alongside our Soul Guide Lantern. We've got some removal because our deck doesn't really remove stuff, so having some that we can reach for and dismember is kind of a big deal. And a couple of Disruptor Flutes, which can be like additional copies of Pithing Needle or stop some problem cards from combo decks or whatever. There's a lot of flexibility to this Disruptor Flute, and we'll see when we're bringing it in. Alright, that's pretty much the list. So let's get on with it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and let's paint the town blue. We are on the play. We do need some more mana to make this work. But Tamiyo can do some real work. Pumping out clues gives us stuff for Emry and Metallic Rebuke. I will keep this because our land can't be wastelanded. We have defense against the many, many combo decks in the field right now. Turn 1 Tamiyo is very much something they have to respect here. We get to leverage the fact that this can draw us cards as well as making us artifacts, because we actually have a use for artifacts with all of our affinity stuff. A Wooded Foothills. Could mean anything. Right, let's attack with our Tamiyo. This will give us a clue and reduce the cost of our Emry by 1. I will deploy an Emry around a potential daze, because this can obviously still get daze related stuff going on, like volcanic islands and so forth. Okay, so we have a Mishra's Bauble for next turn. We have a choice here. We can play out the Grindstone, or we can hold up 1 mana to pay around a daze if we think our opponent's doing something that we need to interact with, and then also daze. Pay for daze, sorry. I think I'm just going to deploy this Grindstone though. If they counterspell this, it doesn't matter because we get it back with the Emry. That 1 mana isn't doing very much for us this turn, but having this in play and the 1 mana untap next turn will do a lot more for us. So we can get some Force of Will action going. Right, so we can Force of Will whatever we need to. Once we untap, we have Metallic Rebuke. Given the fact that we have 2 card advantage engines in play, I'm pretty happy to pitch the Thoughtcast rather than Rebuke if we just don't want our opponent doing anything spooky. But we don't 100% know what our opponent's up to yet. So maybe that analysis will change if we just need to grind and have more cards rather than hold up with this counter magic. Right, so we're in some sort of rug colours. Could be rhinos. Fire. That suggests to me that our opponent is on rhinos. I'm going to... Okay, it just worked. I got rid of the counter spell there because we might need... If this Fire and Ice did resolve, then we want some redraw ability. That's why I kept the Thoughtcast here. So what are we doing? I think we are replaying the Bauble. Cast the Bauble. Attack with our Tamiyo. Gets another clue. Now we can Thoughtcast. We found ourselves a Force of Will. We're also flipping our Tamiyo. So the one thing we really need at the moment is mana. I will take a look to see what our opponent's working with over there. A Spirit Guide. Okay. That's unlikely to make much of a difference. I'm not going to redeploy this Emry now. I think this is our blue card for Force of Will, rather than trying to dig for more cards. Petty Theft on our Emry. That's not actually that big of a deal. We'll just carry on. So now we have another piece of mana in this seat of the Synod. I'll play out this Mox Opal first. I will return this Force of Will to my hand. I will deploy this seat, and I will deploy this painter. I'm going to name black. I don't really want to name blue to give them more forces, and we already have our forces locked up here. Let's just do that. Also, look how sweet these look when they're black. We could crack this clue token. I don't think we need to, though. So we have the win next turn, provided our opponent doesn't have any sort of endurances ready to go, which is a thing that our opponent might have in their deck, because it costs 3 but it interacts lower, and they obviously have to skew their deck so nothing gets hit by their Cascade Chain. So effectively they can actually leverage before turn 3 despite it costing 3. It's something you should expect to see out of our opponent's deck. But double Force of Will is a lot of defense here. We just need to get through one turn. We don't care about Shardless Agent. They're going to cascade into Crashing Footfalls, that's fine. We are going to kill them on their next turn, and then we can also try and counter the Endurance if that's what they have. I think I will draw a card at the end step. Petty Theft. I'm going to say no to that. They knew we had the Force, and they're scooping it up. They basically were testing to see if we had the blue card to go with it, but they knew we had the blue card actually because they bounced the Emry. Alright, so far so good. What do we want to do about what our opponent is up to? So, blue blasts are interesting because if they have a Minsk and Blue plan, this is very good against it. We can also just name red with the Painted Servant, so these can counter anything, which is always an interesting line to pull. But I think, unless they show us the Minsk and Blue, a lot of these lists don't tend to be on the Minsk and Blue, they're more on Murktide Regent. So I'm not 100% convinced with these. Force of Negation is awkward because quite often they're going to be casting Violent Outburst and going in our turn, so this just won't work to stop their rhinos. Consign to Memory, on the other hand, this can just stop the trigger. So we can just counter the Cascade trigger, and that's like countering their spell. So I think that's worth running. We could run Disruptor Flute, which means their combo actually costs 6 mana, and I don't hate that as a strategy. So these are 4 cards that I'm potentially interested in. What do we not require? We can probably trim 1 Bauble. This game is probably about the early turns a lot more, so we're probably going to want to trim some of the slightly more expensive spells like Stock Up. And we can probably trim this, or just get rid of this Soul Guide Lantern, because we're not really going to need that. That leaves us looking for one more cut if we want to have all of these things in. We do actually Blood Moon. How much do we have to respect our opponent's ability to Blood Moon early? It's very good against our Urza Sagas. We only have 2 islands in the deck. We can use Artifact Mana to get around it. Our win condition is technically colourless. Interesting. Maybe we can't afford the Disruptor Flute here and we need to have the blue blasts in. Just a couple of them, so we have an out to the Blood Moon. And I think I'm going to get rid of a Rebuke here. Because our opponent has lots of mana in the form of Spirit Guide, so they might be able to pay at times. It'll cost them more cards, but if the thing they want to resolve is good enough, then it won't matter. What do we have here? This is a perfectly serviceable Urza Saga hand. Alright, so we've got a Hedge Maze over there. Our opponent just saying that they're kind of getting back into Legacy after a while. So what do we do here? There's no way we can put this Emry into play right now. So I think it's Urza Saga beatdown plan. And we'll play the boots out now, because then we get access to another artifact to make our Emry cheaper if something happens to our Saga plan. So our opponent's deck might have Wastelands in, it might have Blood Moon. There's all sorts of things they can do. When our Urza Saga pops, we probably want to get the Mox Opal so that we have a blue source that we can rely on underneath the Blood Moon, so that we can just cast this Hydroblast if that's the thing we need to do, as well as just casting our blue spells. Unless there's something that we get off of this that pretty much just wins us the game. Okay, so there is the Wasteland. We're almost certainly losing the Urza Saga, but now we can play the seat into Emry next turn. And that's a pretty solid approach. Our opponent can't run Pyroblast in their deck due to the limitations of the whole Cascade thing. So we have that going for us. A Force of Will. Okay, I will deploy the Emry. A Mystical Dispute. How much do I care about this? What does our hand do if there is no Emry in play? Nothing. I think we have to fight over this. The Metallic Rebuke is certainly an easier thing to leverage because it can counter any spell. But Hydroblast does answer a specific problem spell for us. I think we're going to pitch the Hydroblast. If this goes wrong, then we can sit on our Metallic Rebuke for a turn until we draw some action at least, or until we have to use it. And that might be okay. Buy us enough time to get another thing going. We do need one of our engine cards like an Emry in play, or a Saga, or a Tamiyo. Like, our deck has quite a lot of engines we can crank through. Can I have my Emry, please? We can. Okay, this is excellent news. Did we find anything? We did. We found a Bauble. So we have Howling Mine. We also have this Painted Servant that we can leverage at some point. A Lorien Reveal from our opponent. This is quite a big upgrade for the Rhinos deck, really. Being able to have an actual cantrip for 1 mana. Like, it can only find one thing, which is a land. But quite often that's going to be what you're looking for anyway. Okay, a Thoughtcast. So step 1 is get back the Bauble, I think, here. I think we want to keep the Otawara in hand rather than playing out, because this can bounce a Rhino and just get rid of it. So I think we play out this Ancient Tomb. This is currently costing us 2 mana. So if we play this, we won't have the ability to cast this Metallic Rebuke. But I think we need to get something going here. And we can always just put the Lavaspur Boots on this Emry of ours. Okay. I think that's probably our best bet, isn't it? Equip this, make it a little bit more difficult to deal with. Gives it Ward 1. Which, given the level of efficiency in Legacy, that's often going to double the cost of stuff that interacts with it. Fire Ice, okay. Happy about that. Am I just drawing another card? I think so. I think we just want cards here. And we're going to draw them both because we have things like Force of Will in our deck. We want to draw them both before our opponent can start playing Sorcery Speed spells. Okay, so we have our whole combo and we've drawn a Force. This is obviously a Force that only works on our opponent's turn unless we have the mana up, but that's still something. A Shardless Agent. How much am I bothered by Rhinos here? I think we just want the time here. So I'm going to pitch this Tamiyo so they just get a 2-2. Sink into Stupor. Is that where I want to be here? We can get the Painted Servant. Probably a way we can get the Painted Servant and the Grindstone going, isn't there? So we'll play this one out. We will get back the Servant here. Cast this. What do we name here? I don't think it actually matters. I don't really want to name red in case they have Fury and just give them an easy line to Furying us. Alright, I just name black. And we don't want to give them blue cards. We don't want to let them pitch lands to their Force of Wills. So I will deploy this Grindstone. So once we have this in play, we have 3 artifacts. We have enough artifacts here to Metallic Rebuke because we can improvise it. So we are in a good spot here. We probably didn't need to counter those Rhinos, but if, let's say, something happens to our Painted Servant or our Grindstone that means we can't use it or we can't get it back, then we're going to feel really bad that we don't have access to a way of stemming the bleeding as all these big Rhinos come in and mash us up. Alright, we want our opponent to tap low so our Metallic Rebuke does more work. Tiger from our opponent. We got the full spread. Fire. Targeting the Emry. That is not where we fight here because we have the win. So they're paying and killing the Emry. Sure. Do they have something like an Emrakul? That would be really irritating. Okay. I want to keep up a lot of blue mana here. So we're just going to do this now. Border in something to stop them from milling. A Force of Vigor. I would like to cast this Metallic Rebuke. So we need a blue mana. Use this one and we'll tap this. So this was their answer. So I suspect they don't have anything that shuffles in right now. Alright, we got the GGs in chat. Okay, not a bad first game. Let's see if we can keep it rolling into round 2. Alright, what does this hand do? This is seat, Emry. And then off to the races we go. Sure, I'll keep that. I'd rather not have to Force of Will super early doors. Would like to keep some action going. Alright, we're in some sort of mirror perhaps. Ancient Tomb, that's pretty good. Get our Bauble down as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're pretty close to casting a Thoughtcast. But I think I just want to get this Emry up and running. The sooner this is doing its thing, the better for us. Okay, we have the ability to draw extra cards here. Would I like to draw an extra card right now? I think so. Get some information on what our opponent's doing. A Hull Breacher. Alright, I know what our opponent's doing now. And I don't like it. We're going to pitch the Thoughtcast, because if this goes wrong, and we don't get a go through, then our Thoughtcast is a thing we want to not have in our hand anyway. And Urza's Bauble. Alright, so they're like, probably somewhere more towards like Hull Day, or Karnak, or whatever you want to call it. But we'll see. They could have, they've shown us the Baubles, so they might have a little bit more artifact stuff than we thought. Okay, here it is. There is a Sigh. So this is all right for us because we don't really care about little 1/1s because we're just trying to mill our opponent out. All right, so they got to see an island from our hand. I don't want to play out the painter in case our opponent is playing Grindstone themselves. Okay, let's stock up first, I think. All right, so we get 2 of these cards. I would like... Not really into these cards that much, if I'm being perfectly honest. We could take a Lotus Petal here and a painter. Again, I don't want to play the painter in case our opponent... Although if they're running Hull Breacher, what are the chances they have painter in their deck as well? Can't be that high. We could also just get an Emry and then refire an Emry to give us more stuff to look at. I think I'm going to do that. This is basically like a sort of draw 4 in a sideways way if you look at it. So we'll keep the one that is not newly controlled. So we mill 4 and hopefully we find something exciting. Lavaspur Boots. How into that am I? I think I just want the Bauble. We're just trying to race towards the Painter Servant Grindstone combo. It doesn't look like our opponent has much in the way of interaction right now. Right, they got a Lotus Petal. That's just good for another flyer, but we've got a reasonable amount of life total to work with before our Ancient Tomb stops being that useful. Okay, so we have enough mana to deploy Painter and Grindstone and activate it, right? That's 6 mana total to do it all. So we've got mana to spare. We need to find them. A Lion's Eye Diamond. Yep, so there's going to be some Echo of Eons stuff going on here. They're just firing off right now. Ooh, Urza. Our opponent's deck is sweet. Haven't seen this one for a while. Right. Time to spin to win. Oh no, this is a Kappa Cannoneer. Nope. Okay, sorry. They're just tapping their artifacts for blue mana because of Urza. This is a disaster for us. I don't think we can beat Khan. So they can just crunch our Lotus Petal. They can go and find something horrible. They have the ability to make 2 blue mana here. So they could play things like Pithing Needle or Disruptor Flute out of their sideboard. I think this is going to be tricky for us. So we bottomed... Did we bottom both of our bounce effects? We have like 1 bounce effect left that can impact Khan. They've got Liquid Metal Coating, so they're going to play the Coating. And they can shut down our Emry if they want to. They can shut down our Ancient Tomb. I think we're just dead here. I don't think we're winning that one. Smashed us right up. Khan is obviously not a thing we want to see. So, with that in mind, let's get these Khans right out of here. So, Pithing Needle we can choose to 4. Force of Negation can counter the Khan. I think that's something I'm interested in. They showed us Sai, which we don't care about that much. They showed us the Khan. Do we want these consigned to memories to deal with the Khan? So they have a bunch of other colourless stuff going on, but they're really scary things are probably just Khan, Kappa Cannoneer, Emry. So that's quite a few things that, like, any one of those is really getting hit by this consigned to memory. I don't know if we're going to need this Soul Guide Lantern. I think we probably do. The Lavaspur Boots, maybe not so much. It does give us hasty Emry, which can be a big deal. And gives us the ability to pressure a Khan with things that they might not expect. That's probably okay. How do I feel about Tamiyo? It is a blue card. Like, we're probably trimming on some sort of Bauble. And maybe we're trimming on a stock up, because that's a bit of a later thing. Metallic Rebuke, are we going to have the mana to do this if we're trying to leverage free spells? Okay, I think we'll probably turn a Rebuke into a Force of Negation. Because we need to be developing our board out, I think. The Spellbomb can sometimes buy us a turn against some annoying things. I will keep it in. I feel pretty horrible about this matchup. It's kind of like a bit of a mirror, except our opponent's gotten rid of like the Painter combo and instead just has something that absolutely smashes us to pieces. Okay, we can counter Khan. That's a thing I want to do. So we have to lead off on the island here, and then we can play the Saga and start cranking out. If we find a Bauble, that'll be like probably the best draw here, because then we can play the Emry this turn. Ancient Tomb. I like that, but I like having our Urza Saga running more. Am I going to play out this Painter? I think so. And I will name blue so that we can pitch whatever we want to our Force of Wills. Now, obviously, that goes likewise for our opponent. So, a bit of an interesting one, but we are representing a kill in 2 turns' time. And we're backing it at the moment with double Force of Will. Khan, the Great Creator. No, I don't want you around. Get rid of this Otawara. We're not beating Khan, so... Okay, Lion's Eye Diamond, you can have that. If they spin here and we counter it, that's going to be excellent for us. Okay, we just get to put our opponent in the dirt now. So they've got nothing going on, and they're skipping as well. Yeah, we're playing 3-turn games against our opponent. They're not technically over, but they kind of are. So the reason I'm not bringing in the Graveyard Hate of Faerie Macabre is because when the Echo is in the graveyard, they have priority if they've just cracked an LED for it, so we never get a chance to remove it. I think I like how I've sideboarded here, and we're going to submit. What does this hand do? It counters Khan. That was good enough last time, it's probably going to be good enough this time. We can also play a turn 1 Emry, because this reduces it by 1. You put the spell on the stack, then you pay for it, so it'll be 2 mana to cast, and then we tap the things to cast it, and then we sack our Lotus Petal. So that's fine. And then we can just sit behind our counter magic and not get canned. Alright, you can Lion's Eye Diamond here. An Emry. I don't really want this Emry. I guess that's a Force of Will target if ever I saw one. Probably the Rebuke goes here. Is that just paving the way for a Khan? This is kind of annoying, but I don't think that's where our fight is. It costs us a Lotus Petal, but I think I can live with that. A Grindstone. Okay, I will deploy this. Ready for the future. Also dodges any potential chalices for 1 down the stretch. Gives us mana to make the Emry cheaper next turn. This is untapped to target a legendary permanent, so I suspect our opponent has the 1 ring in their deck. An Urza Saga, you say. Happy to see that one. So this costs 2 mana, so we can get this going. So the chalice is going to stop some of our we get to draw extra cards with our baubles type lines. But that's a price I'm willing to pay. Right, they've got a lot of mana here. Are they going to dump a card in our laps and force us to fight over it? Defense grid. What do we do about defense grid? If we counterspell the defense grid and don't draw any other counters, then we've just gotten rid of the Thoughtcast for no reason. Yeah, that's kind of awkward. I don't think we're getting rid of the Thoughtcast here. It's annoying. Let's pop out our graveyard and see what we have over there. So this is ticking up. We don't have any mana we can utilise here, so we're casting something from our graveyard. So I guess we get the Saga Lantern, because that's the only thing we can actually cast. So let's cast the Saga Lantern. I will exile their Emry. And then I'm going to deploy this Tamiyo. And just hope our opponent hasn't got anything going on. If they have a Khan, we at least have a little bit of pressure in the Emry. It is little. Okay, it's an Urza. Whew. That's good news. Like, it's obviously not great news because it's like a massive guy and is annoying. But it's not a Khan. An Emry. Yeah, it's pretty solid. By playing the defense grid out, they can't do anything about our spells either. Well, they got a Lion's Eye Diamond they can't cast, and they binned off a Khan they can't get back. I think this game is quite interestingly poised here. Missing the mana to activate our Saga is a bit frustrating. Do I wish we'd have countered the Chalice earlier? Possibly. Alright, we're going for a Temporal Aperture, which is what this effect is from the original card that did that. Okay, they shuffle their library, and then then the top card gets exiled, and they can play that this turn. And it happened to be a Seat of the Synod. Okay. I will float some mana. And then we'll go and get the Mox Opal, I think here. Is it Mox Opal, or is it getting a Pithing Needle to stop Khan and things? I think I just want the Mox Opal, so we need more mana right now. It also takes a bad draw out of our deck, because we can't cast this, but it's something I would quite like to have in play. 1, 2, 3 artifacts, so it's 4, 5. So we could just draw 2 cards right now. That's not a bad place to be. And he's going to flip our Tamiyo. So we can play out this. We can draw a card from our Soulguide Lantern. Then we can either play a Tamiyo or replay our Soulguide Lantern. What is better? Soulguide Lantern is guaranteed card draw next turn. Tamiyo is going to buffer our life total, maybe keep our Tamiyo alive. I think I'm going to re-Tamiyo here. Saves us a bit of life. We can, well, it's probably going to save our Tamiyo a bit of life is the actual thing. And then this can get back like a stock up or something if we want to, but we already have stock up, so it's probably not necessary. A defense grid that taps the mana is pretty darn good. Alright, we're Temporal Aperturing again. Khan the Great Creator. Well, that's what I would describe as the worst case scenario. Okay, so we can get back Sink into Stupor, but we can't bounce it because all of our mana is artifact based. I think that's just game, to be honest. I don't think we can beat the Khan once it's resolved. So if we'd have used our counterspell earlier on the defense grid, we wouldn't have it now for the Khan anyway, so it didn't really make a difference, but we did get to draw deeper into our deck with a Thoughtcast. How do we win from this position? I don't know. 1, 2, 3 mana at the moment. I'm not sure what they're going for. They could just get a Lattice for next turn, or they'll probably just go for Liquid Metal Coating this turn and Lattice next turn. Yeah, there's a liquid metal coating. I think that's game. I don't think we're going to be able to beat the Khan. We can't pressure it. It just ruins our entire deck. All right, that's the match. Let's go to the third one. Okay, this hand looks all right to me. We can keep this. We can just start the Tamiyo rolling. It gives us clues, which gives us affinity, which is obviously a thing we're trying to leverage with these Emrys and Thoughtcasts. All right, a ponder off of a polluted delta. So there's a whole bunch of blue-black decks. Like most of the top decks are probably blue-black decks at this point. It's like blue-black Tempo, blue-black Reanimator, Doomsday, the blue-black Delver list, the sort of blue-black mid-rangey build as well. All right, let's just get this Tamiyo down and start cracking. Can we fight over this with countermagic? I don't believe so, because if our opponent is doing something oppressive, we need to be able to stop it. So if we find a land, that would be useful. An artifact land would be very useful. Another ponder, okay. So this could be a combo deck, like a Storm variant, perhaps. It could also just be like Show and Tell, and they just happen to have polluted delta because that was one that fetched an island, and they can't run 8 Scalding Tarns. Okay, Thundering Force. So probably are on that Show and Tell life. Good to know. Not finding the land there is certainly irritating to me. But it is what it is. I will deploy this Grindstone. And I will pass. We have this turn Force of Will available. The next turn we have Force of Will and a Metallic Rebuke available. Chrome Mox. I don't always see that on Show and Tell decks, but I still believe we're looking at Show and Tell. There is a sneak attack. Right, here is a Force of Will from me. We've got 2 Emrys, so we'll pitch one of them. They got a Spell Pierce here. They've got a Force of Will of their very own. What are they going to put in off of this sneak attack? I dread to think. Is it an Emrakul and just ruin all our opponents? It's an Atraxa. We can beat an Atraxa, but we'll see what it reveals first. Chrome Mox, Emrakul. So they are just going to Emrakul us next turn. I'm not going to force our opponent to click through all that. They got it. Okay, so we can name sneak attack with these things. We can counter their spooky spells with this. We can counter their sneak attacks with these if we want to. That is a lot indexing into sneak attack, bringing in the blue blast as well. But the blue blast can fight over pyroblasts, which is important to know. Consign to Emry can stop Atraxa triggers. It can also stop the One Ring if that's a card they're playing. They tend to be off the One Ring now and are running stock up instead, so I'm not going to board these in because of that. So what do we not need? We do not need Graveyard Hate. So I'm going to put these blasts up here. I think these are the most important cards. So, because the Pithaniel we can find whenever we want it, and the Disruptor Flute, we can name the sneak attack. We don't have to have the spell immediately. And it means we can tap out for one of these and then carry on playing the game. So I prefer these. Aether Spellbomb, probably not where I need to be here. Let's just get rid of that one. Although, if our opponent puts something in and we bounce it, if they've done it with a Show and Tell, that's actually fine for us. Okay, we'll get rid of one Bauble because that's the thing we're trimming a bit anyway. And probably need to keep our counter magic. Maybe we're just looking at trimming like a stock up like we were doing before. Tamiyo is a good thing we can play and just ride to victory. Maybe we can trim on Painter's Servant and Grindstones a little bit here. I don't want to trim 2 Painters, do I? Because the Grindstone we can fetch with the Urza Saga. So we've kind of got 5 copies of that already. So that's fine by me. What's our blue count looking like? Okay, so we take that Solgar Lantern out, and that covers us with those 5 cards we brought in. That seems okay to me. How do I feel about this? We have counter magic. We have a plan. Our plan is play artifacts, draw cards, win game. What a plan. I don't know if we fire this Bauble off straight away. It's 1 card now, but it might be mana and then a card later on. So we might get more out of it by keeping it around. So like we can have a turn 3 Thoughtcast. I think there's a temptation to play out this tap this turn. I think that's okay. And I will play out the Bauble. We don't have anything that means we want to play out an artifact in a turn. I don't think we're going to crack this now. If we find some more stuff, cool. Maybe we'll crack it next turn if we're in need of more counter magic. If we feel that that's what we are requiring. I guess if we're Thoughtcasting here, we're not going to have a blue card. Now, we're likely to draw some blue cards if we're having 3 more draws. But maybe we are supposed to just draw with this Bauble now and get deeper in our deck. Since we just put these cards together and say, look, this is our Force of Will blue card until things change. I don't want to mess with that and tempt fate. So Show and Tell, we can put in a Disruptor Flute and name Sneak Attack. We can always just cast a Disruptor Flute on Sneak Attack next turn. instead of going down this painter route. So we can see what they do with a Ponder, see what they leave on top potentially with our Mishra's Bauble, and draw an additional card next turn. Okay, so they didn't shuffle the Ponder. So we can see what they've kept on top here. Like playing out Lotus Petal. Let's have a little look. A Show and Tell is on top of their library. Understood. An Ancient Tomb. So I think we play this one down. We could just play this Disruptor Flute and name Show and Tell. Make it cost more mana. So as you know, that's what our opponent has. So it's now going to cost them 6 mana to cast a Show and Tell. Now if they just drop a sneak attack on us soon, then that's going to suck because this could have named that. But at least we have the Force of Negation. But we have a pretty clean line to win this game. Next time we play Painter. Oh, we made a mistake here, didn't we? Did we board out the Soul Guide Lantern? We did board out the Soul Guide Lantern. Our opponent plays Emry, didn't they? Oh dear, that was a bit of a faux pas, wasn't it? So our plan now is to make Urza Saga constructs. I think we just play out this island for now. So they might have shuffled away that Show and Tell, we don't know. But the Painter plan is pretty bad into Show and Tell style strategies because they automatically have a way of dodging it anyway. Right, they're putting a lot of resources into this turn. Feels like they're going to be... Well, we have 3 cards left, so they might have just Forcible Blue card to defend, which will work, unfortunately. But they have to have exactly that within... Well, not exactly, I suppose. They can have a Pyroblast as well. We'll see if they actually put anything under the Chrome Mox. I suspect they will. Show and Tell. That was one we saw earlier. So here is the sneak attack. Am I hard casting this or am I pitch casting? I think I need to pitch cast this and then try and... This allows us to play around soft permission, as well as giving us Urza Saga as an ability. So we can also get the Pithy Needle off of this for the sneak attack. Okay, that is a Pyroblast. Not a big lover of what's happening here. But maybe they just get one guy in, hit us with an Atraxa, and then we kind of carry on with life. Or they just then recall us. Yeah, we're not winning this one. That is a horrible matchup. We did sideboard wrong. We need to keep that Soul Guide Lantern in. But generally speaking, when you're playing Painter, when your opponent is playing Emrakul's in their main deck, most likely is like a 4 of as well, or 3 or 4 of, then we're going to have a lot of trouble in that. Because we don't just have our clean line to the combo. Maybe we're supposed to just board out all the Painter stuff and just try and be a sort of mediocre Saga beatdown deck. That's probably not going to work. We could have brought in Hydroblast. If this Painter was a Hydroblast instead, then we'd have been actually in a good spot. So maybe that's the way to handle this matchup there. Bit of a learning experience in that one. Let's go to round 4. What does our hand do here? We can stock up. It's going to cost us quite a lot of resources to do that though. But we are just looking for 2 cards to win the game with a lot of the time. But the fact is we're going to have to immediately get rid of our City of Traitors. So we're basically going to be trading these 3 cards for 2 different cards. I don't like that. I think we're going to mulligan. Okay, I'm a little bit happy with this one. We can start cranking the Urza Saga constructs from turn 2 quite easily. Let's see how many... Having to get rid of one of these is a bit annoying. But we go 1 land, 2 land, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we don't need the Lotus Petal. Is that right? So we play 1, 2, 3 Baubles. This costs 2, then we have 2 mana. Yeah, okay. So we get rid of the Lotus Petal. All right, we're going off. Here is our Urza Saga. Bauble. Bauble. Mox. Probably a correct order that you want to play those. But I wanted to get the ones that draw cards first. Maybe they counter the Mox. Do I need to play this one out? Let's see what our opponent's playing. Do I see what our opponent's playing, or do I just want massive constructs? I'm kind of into massive constructs, to be honest. Let's just have some large friends. So the first one's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to make a 6/6 that's immediately going to become, what, like an 8/8 and possibly larger. And then we can get some Graveyard Hate. We kind of drew the Graveyard Hate now. Interesting. Let's cast a Soul Guide Lantern. I think it's more important to get the Graveyard Hate than keep our Lotus Petal around. We have to exile our own thing, but it doesn't really matter for how our deck operates. And now the scariest thing that I'm expecting out of blue-black isn't a thing we have to worry about as much. Now, they could just be a Storm deck, and then, sure, we're dead, but we can cover some lines. All right, so they are reanimating over there. Do we even care about the Troll of Khazad? If they reanimate Troll of Khazad-dûm, I don't think we fight it, because we're just going to have bigger creatures, and they're going to take 6 damage. There's a Ponder. I'd rather save this and make sure something scary like an Atraxa or an Archon doesn't get into play. All right, we're losing a Lotus Petal, but we're getting a massive creature instead. Let's make another massive creature. What do I want here? I could take a Lavaspur Boots, but I don't have the mana to equip it right now. But it can be good in the future. I could take an Aether Spellbomb as like a little hedge. Or our opponent can scoop while I'm trying to make a decision because he made some massive friends. That works for me too. Sideboarding. Graveyard stuff. I would like them. Do I want to have Pithing Needle for Wasteland? It's weird because if we tutor for a Pithing Needle with Ezra Saga, we've already got our Ezra Saga value, so we don't need the Pithing Needle. It's kind of like a weird catch-22 of it. Force of Negation is annoying. I don't really want to have to play it if I can avoid it. I think we just trade in some rebukes for these Faerie Macabres. Bouncing stuff out of play is good. We want all of our artifacty stuff. How much do we think our opponent's going to have a Null Rod? They probably have one Null Rod. I think that's okay. So if they're going into a Barrow-Growth plan, do we want the Dismembers? Dismember kills Troll as well. I think we do need the Dismembers here. Our Lavaspur Boots is important. It can flip a race. We're probably trimming one Bauble and one of some card here. We've been cutting the Thoughtcast a bit. I'm going to try cutting a... Sorry, we've been cutting the stock up a bit. I'm going to try cutting a Thoughtcast and keeping the stock up in and see how that feels. Since we are boarding in 5 things that are not artifacts. We've boarded out an artifact. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have Saga Lantern as well. Yeah, this looks like a pretty good hand. So can we play around days here? Play out the Bauble. We should play this out. So we're going to be behind on doing our Sagas, but this allows us to play around a days, which I think is correct. They're fighting over this. They could have a Consign to Memory. That wasn't the thing I wanted to resolve. Here, have my Saga Lantern. If they have Consign and Day, that's pretty good. Now, this requires them to also be on the Reanimate plan to really matter, which I have to assume they are on. So are we trying to draw extra cards now? We have 1 card now. We can save up for maybe 2 cards later. I think we just want to make sure we hit a land so we can start doing Urza Saga stuff. And that's the long and short of it. A Downthrough Voidwalker. Okay, well, we have that cover with a Dismember. We can play Dismember and Grindstone next turn. Alright, so there is the land. So we have enough mana to do all the things we want now. Okay, we have more Graveyard Hate. That makes me feel safer. I will deploy a Grindstone. Just get our artifact count up. And make our constructs bigger. Make it much more difficult for them to kill them with, like, playing Bowmasters, pinging them, blocking them, that sort of jazz. A Brainstorm. This suggests to me that they didn't hit the land that they wanted. I feel pretty comfortable now. A Wasteland would definitely change things, but not a Wasteland. Beautiful. Okay. I wouldn't mind a land that doesn't hurt us. Okay. I think I just want to grind the construct value for a little bit because we have the Graveyard line covered and the Fair line covered. I think the safest way for us to play this game is just to blow them out with a Faerie Macabre. So there's an Atraxa. They're going to go for it now before this pops and maybe finds us another piece of Graveyard Hate. And then we get to go discard this, get rid of the Atraxa, and probably a Brainstorm here is fine. Makes it more difficult for Murktide Region to be larger. Alright, so the Reanimate fizzles, and then we get to jam a big old construct at our opponent here. We are very much in the driving seat. Alright, our opponent's just skipping up. We have the match there. So, yeah, I felt pretty good. Running Graveyard Hate for the Graveyard deck. Not exactly rocket science. Let's go to round 5. We are 4 rounds in. This has been a quick league so far. We're currently 2-2, so there is a positive record hanging in the balance. This is a weird opener here. We have a Saga that can just sort of run its course and get us our combo, but we're going to need some more mana. We can use a Mox Opal, but we're not going to have the artifacts available to really leverage it. This is an odd one. Let's look at our land count. So we have 18 sources plus 10, so that's 22 minus 1, so that's 20. We're looking at roughly 20 cards. So that's 1 in 3. And we kind of need it in 1 draw step, really. I think I'm going to mulligan. Yeah, this works. This is great, actually. Yeah, this is a similar hand in some respects. So turn 1, we go artifact, artifact. This costs 1. Play this. Which means we're probably getting rid of the Soul Guide Lantern and just leaving our combo in place. Or we can get rid of the Grindstone and just have a we don't lose to graveyard stuff. Oh, it's Phil. I didn't even realize we were playing against Phil. I think we're going to get rid of the Soul Guide Lantern. Right, Mishra's Bauble, Seat of Synod. Let's get a little Emry action going. Alright, so we have a Howling Mine established, and we also have mana, so that's alright. I wonder what he's doing today. We haven't given away any of our secrets that we're playing this sort of deck yet. A Boseiju. Glad that's in play, and not pointed at one of our things. All right, so our opponent is on some sort of lands style strategy here. Blue lands. Do I want to draw a card here? I think the answer to that is yes. Let's get a bit more information. Misty Rainforest. Not great information. Stock up. Okay, so we're going to play our Urza Saga. Think we want the painter down this turn. And what am I going to name here? Yikes. Let's name red and give them something to think about. I'm going to bring back this Lotus Petal, I think. And now our opponent's going to be thinking about Hydroblast. So we can at least put that thought in our opponent's mind for now, even though we don't have it, not even in the main deck. But our opponent's going to be, okay, do I have to navigate this? They've obviously played in a way that maybe they have that. The Ghost Quarter on the Urza Saga isn't actually that much of a problem because we have the Grindstone in hand. And we can also double fire this Lotus Petal next turn. We can crack it for mana, and then Emry can bring it back and crack it. This way we're not leaving our Grindstone in play. Right, there's the Misty Rainforest we saw earlier. Could be something like an Uro. Life from the Loam. Getting back the Ghost Quarter. Sure. Mana Bond. Yep, our opponent is very much doing their thing, but so are we. And I think that favours us in this moment in time, unless something really spooky happens from this. I don't want to see a Tabernacle. I know Phil loves playing multiple Tabernacle decks at the moment. Submerge. Okay, that's fine. I think we have this one then. They have nothing in hand, and we know we're drawing. We know it doesn't matter what we draw here. So we play this one out. We drop the Grindstone, and that should be game. Our opponent won't let us see their deck unless they have a way that shuffles it back in immediately, like an Emrakul style card. All right, we got game one there. Lands, you say? There's a bunch of lands that I would like to Pithing Needle. I don't really want to Force of Will that much. Faerie Macabre is nice. Force of Negation is just better than Force of Will here, so we'll just upgrade those. Metallic Rebuke looks bad. I don't think we need the red blasts. Consign to Memory is okay, but I don't think that's what this game is about. Love the Soul Guide Lantern here. Stock up maybe a touch slow. Same with Thoughtcast, so maybe we can trim one of each of those. How do I feel about Tamiyo against their deck that has Caracas in almost certainly? Maybe it's the Tamiyo that goes, but that is kind of an engine that we're trying to leverage early on, but is that realistic? So we have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 force effects. I think that's okay, because 3 of these force effects can nail our opponent's loam once and for all. Maybe we'll get rid of like 1 Tamiyo and try something on that looks like this. I find it difficult to board with these 8-casty stuff decks. I find it a bit easier with the painter builds because, like, okay, we've got a combo that we're working towards. But when you're just trying to play like the value 8-cast, I struggle a little bit sometimes because I'm like, well, all these cards look bad. Which one am I supposed to take out? 1, 2, 3. This is a turn 3 Goldfish with some issues. Yeah, we'll give it a well. Because the first Urza Saga will get us the cards we need. Alright, so Force of Vigor is a card our opponent is quite likely to have in their deck. So we're kind of just holding on. We're just doing the thing and hoping it's good. Oh, I hate this pause in our end step. I can feel it coming. It'll certainly set us back a bit. Okay, maybe we're just getting a Surveil land. Maybe it's a Surveil land first to see. Oh no, just a forest. And nothing. Okay. A Wasteland. Not the thing I wanted to see here. But they don't have like the mana bond expiration stuff going right now. Alright, let's keep going with these. This hand was a little bit risky. Very high upside, obviously. Having something that goes underneath what our opponents do. Oh no! I remember this turn cycle. Okay. We're just accruing 1 mana artifacts while our opponent blows up all our lands. Uh-oh. Well, Phil's going to know he's in good shape now. Yikes. So if we see a Life from the Loam here, Mulch, that's pretty good. So they got Boseiju, which is obviously very good against our deck, but will give us some mana, and it'll be a basic land that's going to be difficult for them to deal with, but they have shown us Ghost Quarter. So what they're going to discard here. The depths maybe? Depends what they have in hand, really. Okay, just a Misty. Can we find a land here? Yes and no is the answer to that one. Let's get a Mox Opal down. This is why we're playing out our artifacts. And I think at this moment in time it's play out Emry, use it to dig for artifact mana. Okay, so we can't play lands from the graveyard. It's only spells. Because it has to be things you cast. So there's a difference between play and cast. So play means just playing it. So that can be a land or it can be a spell. Casting specifically refers to spells. Right, a Dismember for our poor little defenseless Emry. But if we draw a land, we might be able to drop a Painter, and then we just need one more mana source and we're ready to rock and roll. Aha! A Thespian Stage. I've seen this little trick before. Not a big lover of this. Goodbye, our chance of winning this game. We could draw a land here. That's not the worst. Okay, let's get this show on the road this ways. Let's see what we can find. And we'll look at that forest. So we're looking for... That's not going to help. Being able to bounce the Dark Depths only works if they make it at a time that's convenient for us. I believe Phil is going to go for it here. We're so far behind the gun, they're just going to make that one. All right, so that didn't work out the best for us. Wasteland. So the Wastelands are exactly why I brought in the 2 Disruptor Flutes. But it didn't quite work out for us. Do I want to do anything differently? I don't think so. Like, we could trim a Tamiyo for a Bauble, but they're kind of similar in certain ways because they give us artifacts to enable other bits and pieces. How important is this Lavaspur Boots to us? I think if it gives us the ability to make an Emry with haste, I think that is kind of a big deal. Because that means we can go and get back an Aether Spellbomb when we need it, or whatever, or a Pithing Needle. Okay, I'll keep this. So it's turn 1, Tamiyo, turn 2, Emry, or turn 2, Disruptor Flute on Wasteland. But our opponent has shown us that they're running Ghost Quarters as well. So let's jam this Tamiyo. They're going to play a Caracas on turn 1. Waterlogged Grove. Alright. I don't think them taking damage from this is going to matter. Field of the Dead. Yep, I expected this was in as soon as we saw the Mana Bond. What am I worried about here? I think it is a Wasteland. So we're going to play this, pay 3 life. We attack with our Tamiyo here. So we could get the Emry running instead. Double Wasteland is obviously going to be a pain if that happens though. This is a really tough choice. I think I want to be mana efficient with a Disruptor Flute here. So things like Ghost Quarter at least give us mana back, and that's fine. Not ideal, but still fine. Although hitting the City of the Synod, turning into an island will take away a mana from us because of the affinity. But we have Force of Negation for a Life from Alone play. Do we have to Force of Negation and Mana Bond is a question. Because this could be the turn where they cast Mana Bond. We don't get to Force of Negation this, we just lose 2 permanents. Yep. Maybe we're supposed to have forces in over these. Alright. It depends if we're trying to defend our strategy or attack our opponents. We've gone for a line of attacking our opponent's strategy. A Mulch. I don't think that's where I'm fighting here. Okay, Otawara, Wasteland, Depths. Fine. There is the Mana Bond. So this is probably what we have to fight over, I think. But they are just going to play the Wasteland anyway. I don't think we win in this one. This feels horrible. Like, arguably we could have hit the Mulch instead. But we're just trying to tempo our opponent here a little bit. But we are just falling behind. We need an island. You are not an island, are you? Alright, we'll attack with this little friend of ours. So they have the Otawara they can fire off. So it's going to be a problem whatever we do. I think we just cast in the Emry. Getting that going. Hoping we get some more turns. Okay, we have a Pithing Needle that we can get in 2 turns. Because we can get back the Petal. Then we can turn the Petal into a Needle. We can stop the Wasteland. If our opponent has the Life from Alone here, that's a problem for us. The Force of Negation we did was to buy us a number of turns before this Field of the Dead starts popping off. Maybe we're supposed to hit the Mulch instead. I don't know, but I didn't really want to hit the Mulch because if they mulched and one of the cards in it was a... Sorry, if we hit the Mulch and then they still have the access to Life from Alone or something, then we're going to feel real bad. Whereas the Mana Bond has us dead in probably 2 turns, 2 or 3 turns, whereas by hitting it, we probably buy ourselves 2 additional turns. There's a Wasteland, can't even hit anything. Well, you can hit your own stuff. Please hit your own stuff. They're not going to. Is this just a hard cast force? Right, they're going to bounce our guy. That was always something that was being threatened to happen. Alright, we're back to this game again. We're going to get our clue. We've got plenty of affinity. Just not a lot of mana. So our opponent's got Dark Depths plus 1 mystery card. Best draw for us is a basic island. Right, so there's the Dark Depths. What is your mystery card, opponent? Okay, they're drawing a card from Waterlogged Grove instead of getting this going. Treasure Hunt. I do love a bit of Treasure Hunt. Did they just reveal Mulch? Okay. I was like, yeah, I love seeing a nice treasure hunt being cast. And then it's like, oh, it didn't actually find anything. Okay. Please discard your mulch. That'd be nice for us. So now we get to do some stuff. How do we wriggle out of this one? I don't think we have any choice other than get back Mox Opal here. So we have a choice here. We can hold this Emry in case we draw a blue card and maybe we can stop a Life from Alone down the stretch, or we can mill 4 additional cards. What would we be looking to mill over right now? And why would it be worth doing it now as opposed to later? So if we play it now, we can dig towards a Grindstone. That is not nothing. All right, I'll take another look. So we're always casting the Mox Opal there. It's literally the best thing we can find. So there's no harm in doing that first. All right, mulch. What do they find? A Ghost Quarter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they're going to get some zombies. That's what you're telling me. All right, the gauntlet has been thrown down. It's not going to be the most amount of zombies. It's what, 3? That is a 3-turn clock, but we can block. I think Tamiyo's days of turning sideways are long gone. But our opponent is just on nothing here. They can Ghost Quarter their own land to get another zombie. Got a lot of mana. Maybe they just start funneling into a Dark Depths, and maybe that works out for them. Okay. How are we getting through this? I guess we bring back Lotus Petal. Play the Lotus Petal. Cast this little guy. And we'll name blue so that anything we draw can be pitched to our Force of Negation. And we can block 2 zombies and take 2. So we've got a little bit of time here. I wonder if they are going to Ghost Quarter themselves or they're going to hold it for our potential Saga. They could Ghost Quarter their Wasteland. That's probably fine. Right, they're just going to remove counters from Dark Depths. The classic. Our opponent's living off the top. We're living off the top. We do kind of have this extra engine in Emry. We just need to find a Grindstone. And some mana. Feels we're messing around a lot with sort of land stacks on his channel lately. And I've been really enjoying the content. I love a bit of lands. I used to be a lands player way back before we had Thespian Stage. So when we weren't playing Dark Depths and stuff. No Dark Depths, no Urza Saga. It was a very different world back then. Kind of tempted to play lands in pre-modern as well, which is a thing you can do. It's a bit weird, but you can do it. There's 2 different builds, but I digress. I'll talk about that another day. Our opponent has a spell, I think, because they're tapping for green. Is this crop rotation, trying to work out what the best option to rotate into is? Okay. I don't like this very much. This is a Loaf from the Loam, isn't it? Where is our blue card? There it is. Otawara is pretty tasty here. They can just bounce our Painter. This gives them more mana to funnel into Dark Depths. Not really that's what they want to do, but it's a thing they can do. Now bouncing our Emry. Sure. That's pretty solid. They also have the Besage in their hand, so they can Besage away our Painter here. So we're going to get an island. They have a Ghost Quartz. They can try and rinse through our islands. So they're going to attack us for 4 here. We can block 1 of them. We have an answer to this Life from the Loam, though, which I think we have to actually fire off here. They're not going to discard anything because they've got no cards in hand. This has been a really good game. Some interesting back and forth going on. A Disruptor Flute. We can cast Disruptor Flute. Comes at a cost. So I think what we're doing here is cracking a clue and Force of Negationing their Life from the Loam. I think that is a play here. They can Ghost Quarter us. It doesn't change the total amount of lands we have because we have 1 more island. So they're going to dredge the Life from the Loam because that's just the best play available to them. Now, when they've got this set up already, there's nothing that's going to be better than a Life from the Loam unless it's like a really high roll in Treasure Hunt. So we'll get rid of this. And then we can block, take 4, draw a card. It doesn't take much for this game to come back into a place where I'm happy. But we are taking 4 damage a turn. Let's just sacrifice a clue. Thoughtcast. That's the sort of card we need here. So this means we'll only take 3 damage. So we probably attack with the Tamiyo this turn. Stock up. Intriguing. Let's attack with the Tamiyo, get another clue for later. If this is flipping, then there's no point holding it back. We might as well get our clue because we have a lot of use for having artifacts just hanging around. Thoughtcast. We flip our Tamiyo. We plus the Tamiyo. They can't kill the Tamiyo. If they have a Life from the Loam on top of their library, we can at least stop them getting back the Otawara and the Boseiju, which are two of the most annoying things they can have. This Dark Depths is slowly reducing its number of counters. I don't think it's going to match. I think our opponent's just going to crack us for 3 over 3 turns and just ignore the Tamiyo. But we can rebuy the Thoughtcast and draw some more cards if we want to, but that leaves us dead next turn. So we're kind of priced into doing this unless we think we can just actually win the game. Kind of interesting seeing, like, our strategies are very, very different to one another. But it's really interesting seeing how they intersect. Because we're about the artifacts. They're all about the lands. Okay. Looks like they're attacking Tamiyo. So this is buying us a couple of turns on the Tamiyo front. We don't get to rebuy a Thoughtcast. Okay, a land that is triggering Feel the Dead. Not ideal for us. So they will kill the Tamiyo and deal us some damage next turn. Unless we draw absolute nonsense. I guess the only correct thing to do here is to draw a card. I think that's better than casting the Disruptor Flute. Force of Will, not really what I'm after right now. I think this game was won by the Force of Vigor many, many turns ago. I think that's probably the crucial thing, and the fact that we had the wrong force in hand to stop it. So they kill this, deal us 1 damage, and then the next turn they have exactly 8 damage in play. So we are dead on the next turn. What is our solution to this? Interesting. These are like Odyssey zombies, but it's not the Odyssey frame from back in the day. Yep. So they are going to do the play I said, where they finish off the Tamiyo, put us to 8, so they have 8 power in play. They might be able to put more power in play as well. So they're just redeploying a new Yavimaya. So they lose the old one, but they get float mana first. They can just funnel that mana into a depths if they want. There it goes. I just want to kill all of these zombies so that we get to see the 30 mana Marilage. What does this do? Probably kills us, because I hate it. I don't think there's enough stock in the world that we can find here. So we're on 6. We need to deal with 2 of these zombies. So we need to deal with 3 of these zombies. I guess we take this and a piece of mana. Play this out. Draw some more. Yeah, our opponent's got us there. Didn't get to see the 30 mana Marilage. Alright, so that is the end of the league. It was a pretty speedy one, to be honest. The final round we lost to the clutch Force of Vigor early on, but that's always going to be something that is a good tool against our deck. It's always going to get a 2 for 2. And best case scenario, we pitch a blue card to a Force of Will. Worst case scenario, we don't have any mana, we don't get to play the game. And that is unfortunate. The Sneak and Show matchup we lost, abysmal matchup. I've never enjoyed playing against that as Painter ever when I've played any builds of Painter. Unless I played like the mono black super heavy combo really early with a bunch of Dark Rituals Storm hybrid build. That feels okay. But the rest of the time, you're having a horrible time in that matchup. And that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. You can't beat them all. I really enjoyed how we took apart the blue-black reanimated deck. That felt really sweet. We definitely have a lot of cool tools. We lost to Khan. Khan is just going to be an absolute beating. If we don't counterspell the Khan, we lose. And that is sadly the nature of things. So we kind of got smashed by some really problematic matchups and haymakers. But I think the deck was pretty good. So let's talk about it. So I like a lot of what this deck's doing. When the blue painter deck was really good, like a year, it might have been more in the year, I don't remember now. But there was a while where blue painter was a really, really good deck and was winning a load of events. And then it kind of just tapered off after a while. But there was a nice splash where it was doing really well. The thing about a deck that looks like this is if you want to, you can always beat it. Every deck has the ability to just play some null rods and stuff and beat this deck. And that is definitely a weakness, but we have tools to deal with it in some ways. You know, we can bounce it if we need to. We can change its color and then blast it. There's options available to us. So the new tech that's making people play this deck right now is obviously Stock Up. Now this card I think is good. I think it's not like the be all and end all. I think seeing some of the fair decks that aren't playing Ancient Tunes or Accelerants, seeing them play it doesn't sit well with me. I think it's more of a, if you need to grind, then you put this in your sideboard as an option to grind against some decks. But that's not Legacy right now. Legacy is not, you need to trade efficiently with your cards all the time and then slowly grind out incremental advantage over like an 18-turn game. That's just not the Legacy we live in. And I think we're more about having the right cards early on rather than having this thing that lets us find a bunch of stuff later on. But for a deck like ours, which is looking for A plus B, and we accelerate it out with Ancient Tombs and like Moxes and things, this feels like a really good fit. Same with the sneak attack decks where, again, they're running some number of soul lands, so this is a thing they can cast ahead of curve, and then just set up for like their turn 3 winning the game style thing. So yeah, this deck seems fine. I do actually like the Tamiyo quite a bit here because of how it enables all of our artifacts. Now, we don't necessarily draw that much from the clues as much as I thought we were going to, which is interesting to me. Metallic Rebuke is a card that requires a lot of work to leverage, I find. Like, we did have a game where we had it and we just said no to the Rhinos player, and that was really sweet. But, you know, you need to have, like, a blue mana up and the right amount of permanents. Now, having a blue mana up isn't always the easiest thing to do in our deck. So we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blue sources. One of them requires other stuff to work. We do technically have 4 Lotus Petals, but the problem with those Lotus Petals is that is like a one-off. So we're basically making a bad force of will with our Metallic Rebuke. Like, we get to pitch a Lotus Petal, which is like a low-stakes thing to pitch to a Metallic Rebuke, and maybe get to buy it back with an Emry. But it does feel like Metallic Rebuke is an interesting card to try and leverage when we're trying to play things like Stock Up, which is going to take up our mana on our turn. Same with Thoughtcast, same with Painter. We're playing a bunch of stuff that we're going to want to play on our turn. Same with Emry, because you need to get your stuff out of your graveyard on the turn. Now, this is going to find us 0-drops quite a lot of the time, so it's not going to be that big a deal. But it's not always the easiest thing to get the Metallic Rebuke working. Whereas Force of Negation, obviously the restriction of having to have a blue card in hand can be a little bit tricky, but Painter can help with that. I'm not saying you should just cut the Rebukes for forces, because quite often we're just pitching these to forces, and that's fine as part of the deck construction. And then we did have that game where we did use a Metallic Rebuke, so it's not nothing. But yeah, I quite like decks that look like this. I don't mind playing Painter, and I like this a lot more than regular 8-cast, because we have an I-win button, which I think is important. And we're not playing a bunch of like 6 drops that need us to have all of our things. So like, oh, are we keeping our baubles around to help us cast these 6 drops? Or do we need the extra cards? Because then maybe we can, you know, have some better tools to deal with the game. We're not having to deal with that sort of pressure. We're just like, yeah, we cycle through these. Sometimes it becomes Howling Mines. We only have 1 Mox Opal, so we're not super heavily indebted to trying to get Affinity. The Emry, once we've played that, we don't really need Affinity that much anymore. Yes, Thoughtcast is nice, but Thoughtcast is a blue card, and if we're drawing other cards, then that's a relatively easy decision to make anyway. We just go, okay, yeah, do we need cards now, or do we need cards later? And then you make that decision, and then you use your Bauble. Whereas when you're trying to put like Thought Monitors and Kappa Cannoneers in, you have to kind of play a much finer line with your Baubles. So I prefer a deck that looks like this to a traditional 8-cast build. Also, you know, I love a bit of combo, and Painter 7 is a fan favourite, and I can see why I do enjoy Painter. I used to play a white Painter deck in Paper as well. So yeah, deck is pretty sweet. I think there's probably some more tweaking that can be done to it. I did feel like if our mana was being attacked just a little bit, it was absolutely disastrous for us. And I don't know how we're supposed to address that. You could just put in another land, just to give you slightly better numbers. That might be reasonable. You could play, I think it's Minamo, which lets you untap a legend, so you can get 2 things back with an Emry. It's just a blue land, but it's like, if we're adding another land in, at least it's a land that does some other stuff. It can then also make you play Defense with Tamiyo while still accruing clues. But mainly just getting multiple activations out of an Emry is really good, because you can turn that into, okay, I get to just pay 2 and draw a card. 1 for the land itself and 1 for the activate ability. And that's quite nice with the Emry. So I wouldn't mind seeing that fit in here and just give us a little bit more mana, so we're a little bit less cold to those situations. And it's also a land that doesn't die to Khan and stuff like that. It just gives us a little bit more freedom to work through. Alright, so this is the land I was talking about. Minamo, School at Water's Edge. Legendary land, taps for blue. Doesn't come in taps, so that's nice. Pay 1 blue, tap it, untap target legendary permanent. So we can just untap our Emry and get another hit. It gives us 1 more land that doesn't care about Null Rod, Khan, that sort of thing. It is wastelandable, but if we have 1 more land, then that kind of helps a little bit. And I just felt like sometimes the mana was a little bit awkward for us, because our combo is 6 mana. Now we can break that up over different things. We can have 1 mana, 2 mana, and 3 mana. But it is a combo that requires us to have a decent chunk of mana. And if we can't reliably keep 3 mana in play due to, you know, wastelands or whatever, having a little bit more mana in the deck might help a touch. So that would be my main suggestion for this. Otherwise, yeah, deck felt fine. I wouldn't be embarrassed to play it. We're obviously going to have some horrible matchups and some really good matchups and some stuff in between. And you just kind of have to choose what you want to lose to in Legacy and work backwards, in my opinion. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo decks as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo decks guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.